Stewart Fulton here in Japan, sending you the best news, reviews, previews, interviews, all the views from the land of the rising sun, pro wrestling, pro grappling, kickboxing, mixed martial arts, and especially a focus on those who are responsible for releasing the Kraken. This is Kraken Chronicles. Stewart Fulton in Japan, and you're watching Kraken Chronicles, where we highlight some of the best combat sports athletes who all have tales of releasing the beast, unleashing the Kraken for the fans around the world. Today's guest is Grant Bogdanove, a young man who came onto my radar a few years ago when he stepped onto the quintet mats at Quintet Fight 5. Grant, welcome to the show.
Hey Stu, how are you doing?
Good, man, good. Thank you for joining us this morning, this cold winter morning.
Yeah, it's 7 a.m. here in Tokyo, but it's a pleasure, it's an honor. I'm glad to be here.
Yep, I'm sure you'll be going off to the gym soon, so we're going to get some tasty details out of you. First of all, let's just run through some of your background. Still 29 years old, from the US of A. I believe you went to the University of Iowa, is that right?
Yes, you have done your research. So yeah, 29, graduated from the University of Iowa back in 2015, came to Japan after that to teach English. I was doing BJJ and judo as a hobby, and then eventually competition led to private lessons, led to opening a gym, led to fighting in MMA, and that's where I am now.
Excellent. What's your link with Japan? Because you're bilingual, you're pretty much integrated here. You have a family here. Can you run us through that?
Yeah, so long story short, my mom's Japanese, my dad's American. They met in Japan. My dad was doing English teaching. This is way back in the day, when it was just starting to be a thing, like corporate English teaching. My mom was at the company. They met, moved back to the States, started a family, had 3 kids, including me. And I was always like really interested in Japan, that part of my heritage. We used to come back to Japan during summer vacation or winter vacation, and it was just like the best place for me. So after college, I studied Japanese and economics in college. So I knew I wasn't going to use my Japanese degree like professionally ever. So I wanted to come to Japan and live for 2 years, or I think 1 maybe was the original plan, just to pay that respect to my mom's culture. And then I was going to go back and get like a real job, because Japan, for a lot of people living here, it can be kind of like a dream country where you're just here doing your thing in Japan, ignoring your responsibilities and your family and your life back home. But for me, yeah, I fell into that dream, I guess. And then one thing led to another. Now I'm living here in Tokyo. I've got my own gym, which I opened up 2 years ago. Got married here, and I have my first kid right now sleeping in the bedroom. Yeah, so that's it.
Superb. Now, can you run us through how you got into the martial arts? You're a BJJ black belt, and you compete regularly. You placed in the Asian Open, the All Japan Gi and No Gi. Can you run us through the start of the martial arts career?
When I was maybe 6 or 7, I think, my brother, you hear about this all the time. Like, it's nothing special. My brother was doing judo, my older brother, so I decided to follow him and try judo. So we were doing judo from maybe I was like 7 years old until 13, I think. And then when I was 13, I transitioned into wrestling, folk style wrestling in junior high and high school for about 5 years. After that was college. So in college, I went back to judo as a hobby. It wasn't anything serious, just kind of like a few times a week, but I was doing local competitions and stuff. And then I wanted to get my ground game better for judo. So I did jujitsu at that time, just like once a semester. We're talking once every 4 months, just to like get my ground game up. It was in the summer of 2015 that I was doing a study abroad in Japan that I started to do jujitsu like 3 times a week. at this gym in Hakodate, Hokkaido. So if any of the viewers are kind of familiar with Japan, the northernmost prefecture, really small gym. Like the land space here in Japan is at a premium. So these gyms are very small, and there's like 3 or 4 guys every day. But I fell in love, and that's how I got I would say my legitimate start into BJJ. Was that summer that I started training 3 times a week.
Right, right. When did you pick up your black belt?
I got my black belt in 2021, June 19th. So yeah, when I started BJJ, we're talking about maybe July or June of 2015. And then fast forward 6 years, that was when I debuted in Deep. Deep is this amateur organization in Japan. It's kind of like a feeder league into Ryzen here in Japan. So yeah, I fought in Deep because I wanted to show that my jujitsu is applicable in a cage fight. A lot of guys these days, even the top guys in jujitsu, like probably can't fight MMA successfully or even street fight. It's a lot of like guard based, gi based game these days. So that was the reason that I fought Deep. And then I was also going to open my gym uh, the following August. So like 2 months after that, or a month and a half, I was going to open my gym, and I wanted to spend more time at brown belt. I have no accolades at brown belt because that was during COVID, was when I was a brown belt. So I wasn't able to go abroad. There's no tournaments in Japan. I did some no-gi super fights and whatever I could in Japan, but because of the gym and like how black belts are important in Japanese culture with the martial arts culture, um, I asked my coach Leandro Cusano to give me the black belt in the cage after my MMA pro debut.
Right, right. Yeah, really interesting transition there. You're now undefeated in mixed martial arts, 3-0, all by submission. Like you said, you debuted in Deep, 2 fights on the Ryzen Trigger, which is a kind of regional Ryzen show. Fastest submission in Ryzen history, I believe, 67 seconds. Can you tell us about your MMA debut and, well, your MMA fights in general? As you know, it's very similar to BJJ. Training for a fight, and you can simulate what it's kind of going to be like, but it's never quite the same as when you get in there. The lights are on, the people are watching, your backstage standby, the walkout music, everything else, and especially on this show, we're always talking about releasing the Kraken. And when you go out there, it's not the same as a really hard session in the gym. You have to dig deep and release the Kraken in a different way. Can you tell us about how you felt and what you did in those fights to bring that beast out?
BJJ and MMA are two completely different animals. BJJ is a participant sport. Everyone who competes in BJJ and who watches BJJ also does BJJ, right? That's why the viewership is so low comparatively, and the money is so low. It's pay to play. Like we all pay to go fight the worlds and stuff. And then as you look at MMA, people who watch MMA generally don't do MMA. The fans, right? So two completely different worlds. And I'll tell you about MMA. You cannot train hard as you can't train how you would fight, because you will end up getting injured and concussing your training partners and getting concussed yourself. So you got to spar like super light with the strikes, um, occasionally hard sparring if you need um, to get kind of like used to getting punched and get used to punching hard. But for me, it's like light striking training with hard grappling training, and then heavy conditioning, on the physical conditioning on the side. And then, of course, it's dropping the weight. And this is where I'm going to come into releasing the Kraken, because, man, it was releasing the Kraken. It was releasing the floodgates after I weighed in for my last fight. So, Ryzen, great organization. Mr. Sakakibara, if you're listening, Japanese Dana White, you're the best. Like, please call me for another fight. But they give you the fights on very, very short notice. So I was given my opponent, I think 3 weeks before the date, and I had to drop down to 72 kilograms. So that's basically lightweight. It's like, I think 157 or 158. So I made the weight. That was great, but I failed on the recovery. I think a lot of times, like for me, it was my third fight, and I have the weight cutting down like pretty good, but it was the recovery that I kind of failed on and ate a bunch of crap and stuff and had too much salt, and I was like my throat was swollen and my face was swollen at like 5 a.m. the night before the fight because I wasn't moving around. I was just sitting in my house drinking like Gatorade and eating pasta and stuff. And the excess of sodium like destroyed me. Um, and I didn't sleep the night before because I was dehydrated and stuff. So we're running on like very low sleep, and the swelling in the throat, it made it hard to breathe. And I make it to the arena, and I'm like dead. And my corners, they can tell. They're asking me if I want to sleep and stuff for a little bit. And I was like, guys, no, we're like third fight of the night. There's no time to sleep. Like, just got to get through this. So I took my pre-workout, got jacked up, went out there. I was feeling so bad, man. Like, and I haven't really told many people this. I don't want to say this because it makes it sound like I'm making excuses or something. But yeah, I was feeling pretty shitty. And for the next one, I've learned how to recover properly. Probably no food within like the first few hours, just liquid. And then the first meal's got to be small and light. Like I was drinking Starbucks, eating like rice balls and stuff right after weigh, and it was terrible. But anyway, long story short, I go out there. The guy's like a Greco-Roman wrestler. He was making his MMA debut. Ryzen kind of likes to use me as the jiu-jitsu guy, and then they put me up against last time like a pro wrestler, and then this past time, it was against this amateur Greco-Roman wrestler. Japanese fans kind of get excited about that style versus style. So I go out there, first round, I get 2 takedowns, but I wasn't able to do anything with him. He stood up, and I got some good striking against the cage, but he definitely got the better of the striking on the feet. He was training like 2 years for this debut, training a lot of striking, and he was pretty good. Round two. So the first round was, and I gassed out in the first round so hard. When you take someone down and you can't hold them and they stand right back up, like it drains you. I wasn't mentally defeated because I took him down easy, and that was a huge mental boost to me. But physically, like the excess of sodium and the exhaustion, and then the first round, like I was dead. But I recovered during the minute in between, and then second round. So first round, I took him down against the cage, like near my corner. So that was the plan, and like beat him up against the cage near my corner where I could hear them. But he used the cage to stand up really well. So second round, I pushed him up against the cage and then lifted him and took him down in the center of the cage. So he couldn't use the cage to stand up. That was like a prime tactical choice because after that, I destroyed him. I was on his back like the whole round, and then I couldn't get the choke, so I transitioned to top a few times to punch him and elbow him and stuff. And after the second round, I knew it was over. I didn't finish him that round, but he's going back to his corner. He was dead, and I was feeling good. And third round, man, I released the Kraken. I went in there. I knew it was over, so I just waited for him to throw. He threw. I ducked, took him down, got on top, punch, 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 back fist, elbow, elbow. Referee steps in. Third round TKO.
Boom. You must have felt, man, that must have been rough going in like that in that state, physically and mentally. I would imagine you didn't even care who it was that was standing in front of you. You just wanted to smash him and get home and recover.
Stu, the day of the fight, it's 5 a.m. I'm like choking in my bathroom. I can't breathe. My phone's right next to me. I'm alone, right? I'm thinking like I was thinking of contacting my manager. I swear to God, like and saying, "Yo, it's off. I can't like we got to call the fight." Like, but I didn't, and we came through and exactly like after the fight, I thought about saying something good on the mic and like enjoying the moment more. But like you said, I just wanted to go home. And after that fight, yeah, I just kind of said some almost like generic stuff on the mic, like thanks to my team and my squad and all that stuff. And then yeah, we kicked it. So if I had had a better recovery, I think I would have enjoyed the fight more. Like I didn't feel happy after that fight. I was too tired to enjoy it. And even watching the rest of the fights, like I was third fight of the night, so after getting done with basically no damage, it would have been awesome to just like watch and enjoy, which I did, but like at the same time, I didn't even feel like going out and drinking a beer. Like I was exhausted, man. So
Oh man, that's adversity right there.
yeah.
I mean, it is true that most fighters never compete in 100% perfect condition. There's always some kind of injury or something going on privately, or things leading up to the fight. There's so many variables, but to come through that and win is just fantastic, and that's exactly what we're all about on this show. Now, going back to Quintet, so I first met you Quintet Fight Night 5. And you were on Team Wolf, and then Quintet Fight Night 7 on Team Wolf again. You were on the winning team. Could you tell us a little bit about that experience?
Quintet is awesome. Honestly, when I was an English teacher and a blue belt, like coming up the ranks, I remember watching Quintet when it first came out. Um, if you're a fan of MMA or grappling, how could you not love it, right? It's Sakuraba who's in charge. We got the 5-on-5. They've got funding. Like they bring in the best grapplers in the world to go against each other head to head, like Gordon Ryan, uh, Satoshi Soza, all the 10th Planet guys, Craig Jones. Like there's so many. They got MMA guys, Josh Barnett. They had Quintet in America, Sean O'Malley and stuff. It was great. Uh, and man, to be on that show, and also Ryzen for that matter, like I have done literally everything I dreamed about as like a Japanese MMA fan. Um, and a lot of people suffered during the pandemic, but for me, I benefited a lot. And the reason is as a foreigner in Japan during the pandemic, they needed to bring foreigners in to spice up the shows, right? This is for both Ryzen and Deep. So the timing was perfect. Like I did have the skills to get victories and stuff, but it was also that they couldn't bring in foreigners, so they drew from the foreigners already living in Japan. And yeah, that's how I got into Ryzen. Quintet, I kind of knew Omigawa, and he got me in. Uh, it's funny because there was another guy who was like being considered for that team, and he went to train with Omigawa, and Omigawa like broke his arm. Um, not he's not he trains hard, but I think the guy like didn't tap. It was one of those things. Um, and Omigawa's got like weird techniques. So you might not know that he's like submitting you. He that arm lock he does, it's like it's weird. So you might not think to tap and then boom, it breaks. Anyway, I went to train with him. Like I I messaged him on Instagram because I had heard from a guy who trains with him that they're looking for quintet guys. And I just I shot my shot out of the blue. I messaged him like, "Yo, my name's Grant." He's like, "Come down to train." So I go down there, and I knew that I was getting tested because we were talking before, and he told me that this other guy came to train, and I know that guy, dude. He's a good friend of mine, and he's like very successful now. But yo, I went ham on Omigawa. I knew I had to, right? Usually, the first time you roll with someone, if they're like in their 40s and two weight classes below you, you're not gonna go hard, right? But I knew that this was like an audition of sorts. So I freaking went ham that day. And then afterwards, like he was just like, "Yeah, you're on the team."
Oh, nice, man. Yeah, show and prove. That's what it's all about, for sure. Just before we wrap up here, On the mats, BJJ, when you're going out to compete in the gi or no gi, what does it take mentally? Where are you mentally, psychologically, preparing to go out in these tournament formats and do your best and take the gold?
Yeah, this is such a good question, and it's so multifaceted and hard to answer. So I can give you guys one perspective, right? Because you have to look at what kind of athlete you are at that time, like in your career. So the mental prep for a white belt or a beginner is going to be different than a black belt, and even different than like a purple belt. So if you're making your amateur MMA debut versus like your fifth pro fight, you're going to be the experience and everything. It's going to change everything. So as a beginner, you're probably going to have to worry about like not being like dealing with your nerves and stuff and being scared and something like that. But when you get higher up, it's not really dealing with being scared. It's scared of like the fight. It's more of like being scared of what you would lose if you lost, like your reputation. I guess for guys who are like really, really at the top of the top, if they have a loss, that might affect their legacy. And the biggest thing that I do to mitigate those kind of negative mental factors that can hinder you leading into a fight um, is just having confidence. It's so easy to say, and it's so hard to actually do because you go up against a look, if you go up against a guy who you've seen before, or maybe you've even trained with or had a competition with before, and you know they're just not on your level, it's so easy to build up that confidence. Like, this guy's nothing. Like, I'm going to smash him. And if you can say that in your mind and believe it, not just say it, but actually trick yourself into believing it, like generating that real confidence, then you will literally smash them. It just works that way. It's a mental game. And when I found the most success in my career is when I've applied that. I've kind of like altered my vision. So even if the guy standing across from me was like really good, and you should be scared, right? He's got more titles than you. He's beaten guys who've beaten you. He's this, he's that, he's bigger, stronger, he's on steroids, whatever. Uh, if you can get over that and convince yourself that he's on steroids, but he's old, or he's beaten these guys, but those guys don't have wrestling like you do, kind of make these rationalizations in your mind to convince yourself that you're better and you can dominate them. That's when I've had the best performances of my career, is when I was able to make that switch. And even if the guy across from me was like good, better than me on paper, if I could convince myself that I was better and get that confidence, that's when I performed the best. And it's not easy to do that. It's really not easy to. You can't just tell yourself. You have to like believe it and trick yourself. And I rationalize a lot. Like I say, yes, they've beaten this person, but this person doesn't have leg locks like I do, or make those rationalizations. That helps me. If you're an athlete and you're just starting out or looking for some advice, maybe try that. Find some way to like degrade your opponent in your mind. Like find some way to say that they're shitty. It can even be something as simple as like they're not training as hard as I am. But in order to do that, you really need to train hard and have an excellent training environment in order to be able to like believe that one, right? So you can't make bullshit up, but you gotta like rationalize and build that confidence.
Yeah, that mental aspect is, I believe, hugely overlooked by athletes around the world, and it's often not taught by coaches in many gyms. Only really good coaches break that down, and they're able to pull that out of their students and their athletes. We have commentated Quintet together. Quintet 1 poster in the background there,
There it
just in
is.
the corner there, and we will be on the call again next year. Anybody watching this, look out for those announcements on social media. 2024 is going to be great for Quintet action. Could you drop us your socials? Where can we find you?
So at Grant Bogdanove, just my full name, no spaces, nothing. GrantBogdanove. On Twitter, YouTube, I guess X, formerly known as Twitter, YouTube, Instagram. Instagram's probably the best way to get a hold of me. If you are visiting Japan, if you want to come train, if you have questions about like fighting in Japan or living in Japan, like hit me up. Um, we have the gym. So my gym is called Alma Fight Gym Life. Alma is a kind of old, like really, it's a staple of like the Japanese like martial arts brands here, alongside like Isami and Bull Terrier. So they sponsor me, and then we work together to open the gym. Um, it's in Setagaya, Tokyo. If you ever want to stop by and train, guys, please come by. If you live in Japan and you want to like lose weight, learn self-defense, become a badass, like come visit my gym.
Excellent. Yep. In the Setagaya area, if anybody is in or near there or visiting Japan, definitely drop by the gym. Setagaya is a beautiful area of Tokyo as well. Highly recommend it. Grant, thank you again for joining us here today on this cold, early winter morning. It's fantastic to see you.
Yes, dude, that was great. Thank you for just letting me run my mouth. That was a great interview, and I look forward to doing it again.